The software that started a war. Napster. Napster didn't just let people share music. It forced the entire world to choose a side in a fight nobody saw coming. Before Napster, piracy required technical skill, sketchy websites, and patience. Napster made it simple. Search for a song, click download, done. Within months, college networks were drowning in traffic. Students were sharing entire record collections like trading baseball cards. The music industry panicked, not because Napster was stealing, technically, users were sharing files they already owned, but because Napster made the industry irrelevant. Why buy CDs when millions of songs were free and instant? Metallica sued, Dr. Dre sued. The RIAA sued harder. Courts eventually forced Napster offline, but the damage was permanent. The software proved that centralized control over music distribution was dead. Napster wasn't banned for breaking the law. It was banned for exposing how fragile the old system really was. Once people realized music could flow freely, there was no going back. Streaming services like Spotify and Apple Music exist because Napster proved people wanted instant access to music. The software died so the idea could live. The software that made chaos normal. LimeWire. If Napster was a revolution, LimeWire was the apocalypse. Napster had limits, music only, some quality control, a centralized network courts could target. LimeWire had none of that. It let you share anything. Music, movies, software, viruses disguised as Britney Spears albums, you name it. The interface was deceptively simple. Type what you want, download what appears, hope it's actually the file you requested and not malware that turns your computer into a spam-generating nightmare. LimeWire became synonymous with digital recklessness. Millions used it. Security experts begged them to stop. One study found that over 50% of downloaded files contained some form of malicious code. People were willingly infecting their computers just to avoid paying 99 cents for a song. Courts ordered it shut down. Fines reached hundreds of millions. But LimeWire's legacy wasn't piracy. It was proof that people would accept absurd risks for convenience. The software wasn't banned for working too well. It was banned because it worked so poorly that it became dangerous, and people kept using it anyway. LimeWire taught an entire generation that free always comes with a cost, usually in the form of viruses. The software governments couldn't kill. Kazaa. Kazaa learned from Napster's mistakes, decentralize everything, make the network impossible to shut down, spread across borders until no single government could stop it. It worked. Kazaa became global. Lawsuits piled up in Australia, the Netherlands, the United States. Courts issued shutdown orders. Kazaa ignored them and kept running. The network had no central server to seize, no single company to sue into oblivion. Kazaa was also a technical disaster. Downloads were slow, files were mislabeled, users complained constantly. One reviewer described it as a broken vending machine that sometimes gives you what you want but usually just takes your money and laughs. But none of that mattered. Kazaa survived because it was everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. Governments couldn't ban what they couldn't locate. Eventually, legal pressure crushed the company behind Kazaa, but the software itself kept circulating for years. Modified versions popped up like weeds. Shut down one, 3 more appeared. Kazaa wasn't banned for breaking laws. It was banned because enforcing laws against it was basically impossible. Software that proves enforcement is futile becomes more dangerous than one that's actually harmful. Kazaa won by simply refusing to die. The software that made piracy too easy. Popcorn Time. Popcorn Time was beautiful, polished, and doomed from the moment it launched. The interface looked like Netflix. Browse movies, click play, watch instantly. Except instead of paying a subscription, Popcorn Time streamed pirated torrents in real time. No technical knowledge required. No messy downloads. Just pure, seamless copyright infringement. Hollywood lost its mind. This wasn't some sketchy underground tool. This was piracy with a user experience better than most legal services. Popcorn Time made Netflix look outdated. Governments moved fast. Blocked in the UK, banned in Denmark, seized in multiple countries, but Popcorn Time was open source. Developers disappeared, but the code didn't. Forks and clones spread across the internet faster than courts could issue takedown orders. Popcorn Time didn't hack anything. It didn't steal credit cards. It just made piracy so easy that the moral argument against it started feeling absurd. The software was banned not because it was evil, but because it was simple. Complexity keeps piracy niche. Simplicity makes it mainstream. And mainstream piracy terrifies every industry that depends on scarcity. Popcorn Time proved that convenience beats legality. The software classified as a weapon. Pretty good privacy. PGP. PGP was encryption software that let anyone secure their communications. Emails, files, messages, all locked behind unbreakable cryptography. Created by a programmer who believed privacy was a human right, not a government privilege. The US government disagreed, strongly. In the 1990s, strong encryption was classified as a munition under arms export laws. The government tried to stop PGP from spreading. They failed. The creator printed the source code in a book. Books are protected speech. Someone bought the book overseas, scanned it, and compiled the code. PGP escaped. Governments worldwide struggled with the same problem. PGP gave everyone, journalists, activists, criminals, ordinary people, the ability to communicate without surveillance. And there was no backdoor, no master key, no way in. For years, using strong encryption abroad triggered investigations. Some countries banned it outright. Others quietly discouraged it. The software wasn't illegal, but using it made you suspicious. PGP wasn't banned for being dangerous. It was banned for being neutral. Encryption that protects everyone equally becomes the enemy when authorities prefer selective access. PGP proved that privacy is political. The software that vanished without explanation. TrueCrypt. TrueCrypt was encryption software trusted by millions. Security researchers audited it. Journalists relied on it. Privacy advocates recommended it. Then one day in 2014, the developers shut it down without warning. The website was replaced with a message claiming TrueCrypt was not secure and urging users to switch to BitLocker, Microsoft's encryption tool. No explanation, no details, just a vague warning and a recommendation to trust a corporate alternative. The security community went into chaos. Audits had found TrueCrypt solid. The shutdown felt wrong. Conspiracy theories exploded. Had developers been pressured, threatened, paid off? Were intelligence agencies involved? Nobody knew. Independent developers forked the code and continued it as VeraCrypt, but the damage was done. Trust was shattered. Questions remain unanswered to this day. Some governments quietly banned TrueCrypt from official use, citing the mysterious shutdown as justification. Others flagged it as potentially compromised. Nobody knew what actually happened, so everyone assumed the worst. TrueCrypt wasn't banned for failing. It was banned because its disappearance created suspicion. Sometimes software gets banned not for what it does, but for what people fear it might have become. TrueCrypt's ghost still haunts cybersecurity. The DVD software that broke copyright law. DeCSS. DeCSS is a tiny piece of software, just a few lines of code, that removes encryption from DVDs. It was created so people could play legally purchased DVDs on Linux, which DVD players didn't officially support. The movie industry responded like someone had just published nuclear launch codes. Courts banned DeCSS under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. Distributing it became illegal. Linking to it became illegal. Even explaining how it worked risked legal action. The code itself was declared contraband. Activists fought back by printing DeCSS on t-shirts, in poems, and even as musical compositions. If code is speech, banning it violates the First Amendment. Courts disagreed. The law said circumventing copy protection was illegal, regardless of intent. The bizarre part? DeCSS didn't enable piracy that wasn't already trivial. Ripping DVDs was easy with dozens of other tools. DeCSS just happened to be open source and visible, making it the perfect target for legal precedent. The software was banned not because it was uniquely dangerous, but because the industry needed a win. Allowing DeCSS meant admitting that DRM could be bypassed legally, which would undermine the entire concept of digital copyright enforcement. DeCSS wasn't banned for working too well. It was banned to send a message. Code that undermines control will be treated as a crime, even if it's just math. The spyware that shocked the world. Pegasus. Pegasus is spyware so sophisticated it can compromise a phone without the user clicking anything. No links, no downloads, just silent infiltration. Developed by an Israeli company and sold exclusively to governments for counterterrorism and law enforcement. It was supposed to target terrorists and criminals. Instead, it targeted journalists, activists, lawyers, and political dissidents. Researchers discovered Pegasus on the phones of murdered reporters, opposition leaders, and human rights defenders across dozens of countries. The backlash was immediate and global. The US sanctioned the company behind Pegasus. Apple and Google rushed to patch vulnerabilities. Governments that purchased it faced international condemnation and diplomatic pressure. But here's the problem. Pegasus isn't illegal. It's a commercial product sold to sovereign nations. Banning it means telling governments they can't use tools for law enforcement. Not banning it means accepting that surveillance has no boundaries. Some countries prohibited Pegasus after exposure. Others quietly continue using it. The software exists in legal gray zones, banned in some regions, sanctioned in others, tolerated nowhere but used everywhere. Pegasus wasn't banned for existing. It was banned for being exposed. As long as spyware stayed invisible, nobody cared. The moment it became a scandal, it became unacceptable. Pegasus proved that surveillance only matters when people can see it happening. The surveillance software sold to dictators, FinFisher. FinFisher is surveillance software designed for law enforcement. It records keystrokes, activates cameras, tracks locations. Total device control. Marketed as a tool for catching criminals, it ended up in the hands of authoritarian regimes targeting protesters and activists. Researchers discovered FinFisher in over 30 countries, many with horrific human rights records. One investigation traced it to a government that used it to monitor political opposition before mass arrests and disappearances. The company behind FinFisher claimed it only sold to legitimate governments, but somehow the software kept appearing in places where legitimate meant willing to pay. No questions asked, no oversight, no accountability. Export controls kicked in. The EU restricted FinFisher sales under dual-use technology regulations. Some countries banned its use outright. The company faced sanctions and legal battles across multiple jurisdictions, but FinFisher's code didn't disappear. Modified versions circulated. Governments already using it didn't uninstall it. Banning a product doesn't erase deployed copies or recover collected data. FinFisher wasn't banned for technical reasons. It was banned because selling surveillance to dictators became too visible to ignore. As long as abuses stayed quiet, nobody cared. The moment researchers published evidence linking FinFisher to human rights violations, the software became politically toxic. FinFisher proved that surveillance capitalism has no borders and fewer morals. The monitoring software that crossed the line. Stalkerware Apps. Stalkerware apps are marketed as parental monitoring or employee tracking tools. Install them on a phone, and you can read messages, track locations, listen to calls, all invisibly without the phone owner knowing. The problem? They're overwhelmingly used for domestic abuse and stalking. Partners install stalkerware without consent. Abusers track victims after breakups. What companies marketed as safety and family protection became tools of control, harassment, and surveillance. Victims had no idea their every move was being monitored. Security researchers began flagging stalkerware as malware. Apple and Google purged them from official app stores. Antivirus companies started detecting and removing them automatically. Some countries moved to ban their distribution entirely under anti-stalking laws. But the apps didn't vanish. They just moved to third-party sites and rebranded. Employee monitoring became device security. Parental control became family safety. The functionality stayed identical, just the marketing changed. Stalkerware exists in a moral gray zone. Legitimate uses exist. Parents monitoring young children, businesses tracking company devices with employee consent. But the software doesn't distinguish between appropriate and abusive use. Stalkerware wasn't banned for being malicious code. It was banned because the line between legitimate monitoring and criminal stalking is so thin that allowing the software meant enabling abuse. Sometimes software gets banned not for what it does, but for what people do with it when nobody's watching.